In this video, I'm going to talk about negative feedback inhibition and how changes in the sensitivity of the system lead to the onset of puberty. So you've seen this image in some of the readings for this unit, and we want to break it down for a minute. So this is demonstrating the relationship between the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary gland, and the gonads, the ovaries and testes, and how hormones released by these different organs respond as they interact with other parts of the body. So the hypothalamus is the major organizing center for all of the sex hormones because it releases GnRH. So this green arrow is showing stimulation. GnRH, released by the hypothalamus, stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to do something. And what it stimulates the anterior pituitary to do is release another hormone. So the pituitary releases LH and FSH, the gonadotropins, and they then act on the ovaries or testes. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary are right next to each other. GnRH does not have far to go. LH and FSH, they get picked up by the bloodstream, and so they're circulating widely throughout the body. Finally, the ovaries or testes are stimulated by LH and FSH to produce testosterone and estrogen, the sex hormones, also called steroids. So these hormones then also circulate throughout the body, and they're responsible for lots of the secondary sex characteristics that you read about when you looked at puberty. So these red blocks, these red lines with blocks on the ends, are indicating inhibition. So that means that in contrast to GnRH, the green arrow that was stimulating in action, testosterone and estrogen with these red arrows are inhibiting in action. And so when testosterone and estrogen levels get high, their concentration in the blood gets high enough that it can actually inhibit the pituitary and inhibit the hypothalamus for continuing to produce these molecules. So that means that testosterone and estrogen levels will be maintained at a fairly steady state, never getting too high, or they'll essentially turn themselves back down. So before puberty, during childhood, this system is extremely sensitive. The hypothalamus will respond to the tiniest amount of sex hormones in the blood. That means that the low levels of steroids are maintained, and so they don't have any effect on the target cells. When puberty begins, the hypothalamus becomes less sensitive to the negative feedback. It sort of raises the bar. There needs to be more testosterone or more estrogen before the hypothalamus will respond by slowing down its own production of GnRH. And so that means that GnRH does get produced, and LH and FSH do get produced. And so a little bit more testosterone and estrogen is produced as well. At the same time, the gonads, ovaries, and testes also become more sensitive to LH and FSH at the time that puberty begins. So the circulating levels of testosterone and estrogen are going up. The ovaries and testes are getting more sensitive to LH and FSH, which are being produced in higher amounts. The ovaries and testes grow larger, which means they have more cells to produce more testosterone and more estrogen. And so taken together, this means that during puberty, the body experiences a large increase in the amount of testosterone or estrogen that's present. And that is what causes all of the secondary sex characteristics that we read about.